It would be the meaning behind it, whether it was thought that way or not. But there's no Fred that is space, and there's no Fred that is anything other than space. There's just no Fred. And when once no Fred is first discovered, which is, this is typically the report of a first time awakening or awakening experience, whether there's any duration to it or not, it will be, oh, and there's a movement at that time. So I had an awakening session at the end of last week, and with a guy for whom this had already happened. I could tell immediately. I can't always tell immediately, but with him, it was pretty obvious that he'd had an awakening experience. But what I knew was that I had had an awakening experience through that body. That awakeness had had an awakening experience, a recognition of its own self through that body. But the guy that I was with, his thinking didn't tell him that. I know what his thinking told him because it told me the same thing for 24 years, which is, well, not this exact same thing, but the identification was the same, which was that this body, have had an awakening. And for some, it may actually be scary or something, but for me, it was delicious, because I couldn't even really calculate what it meant at all. I still can't, but then I was really lost. And there was a sense that this body, which surely must be Fred, because there's no doubt about that, has just had an awakening. Now that flies in the face of what had just happened. Because what had just happened in the unit's mind, in this thing's mind, was that Fred had just had a glimpse of true nature, or God, or had had an awakening experience. But I think that the more accurate description really is that there had been realization. And because when there's an awakening, there's somebody who is waking up from another state. There's somebody there. Used to be asleep, now they're waking up, now they're awake. Realization, does it really have to be about anybody? Does there have to be a human being attached if there's realization? Or can there just be realization? And it's not really it's a realization of truth. And a realization of the truth is the same experience as finding out that there's no Fred. Because the strangest thing about being one of these is that when we discover that we're not one of these, if we don't discover it immediately, somewhere along the line, we're going to discover not only am I a Fred, no, I'm not a Fred, but there's never been a Fred. There's no Fred here, and there's never been one.